7:04 a.m. local time. The Caribbean Sea extends in all directions, flat and glassy under early morning light. Wind is less than 6 knots. Visibility exceeds 15 nautical miles. The USS George Washington, CVN 73, maintains course 115 degrees true at 18 knots, her 104,200-ton displacement carving a clean wake through water that looks more like slate than ocean. Inside the carrier's Combat Information Center, the watch cycle turns with mechanical precision. The N/SBS, 48E three-dimensional air search radar, sweeps the sky in continuous arcs. The N/SBS, 49 two-dimensional search radar monitors surface contacts. Screens glow softly in the darkened compartment. Operators tracking 37 civilian merchant vessels, fishing boats scattered along the northern Venezuelan coast, and routine air traffic transiting overhead at altitude. Carrier Strike Group 5 maintains standard formation. The Ticonderoga-class cruiser USS Vela Gulf holds position 8,500 yards to port, her Aegis combat system integrated with the carrier's tactical data network. 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers bracket the formation at 12,000 yards forward and aft. The strike group occupies a moving box of controlled water 50 nautical miles south of Curaçao, deep within international waters under freedom of navigation doctrine. At 7:11 a.m., the surface picture changes. 5 new radar contacts emerge from the Venezuelan coastal shelf. Bearing 095 degrees relative. Range 42 nautical miles. The contacts resolve quickly. Surface combatants, not merchant traffic. Speed 24 knots. Course direct intercept geometry. The tactical action, officer leans closer to the display console. The contacts form a deliberate line abreast formation, each vessel spaced at 2-mile intervals. This is not patrol posture. It is blocking geometry. From the bridge of the George Washington, the horizon remains empty of visual contacts, but the radar picture tells what the eye cannot yet confirm. 5 Venezuelan Navy vessels accelerating toward intercept, closure rate building, intent unmistakable. At 7:18 a.m., positive identification comes through electronic intelligence systems. The lead vessel is ARV Almirante Bryan, F-22, a Mariscal Sucre-class frigate displacing 2,506 tons. 2 Guaycurí-class patrol vessels flank her, each armed with 76mm naval guns. 2 additional patrol craft complete the formation. The frigate's fire control radar emission spike, active and persistent. Range 38 nautical miles. Inside the carrier's flag operations center, the strike group commander receives updated assessment. The Venezuelan formation maintains aggressive course. No deviation. No radio communication attempted. International maritime law requires vessels to maintain safe passage and avoid risk of collision. The approaching formation does neither. The calculation is straightforward. At current speeds and bearing, the Venezuelan ships will reach a closest point of approach within 47 minutes. Intercept geometry places them directly across the carrier's projected track. They are not shadowing. They are positioning to block. Have you considered what happens when a carrier strike group encounters a deliberate obstruction in international waters? The answer lies not in firepower, but in doctrine that most never see applied. At 7:24 a.m., the Venezuelan frigate increases speed again. 27 knots now, pushing her diesel engines harder. The patrol vessels accelerate in formation, maintaining line abreast geometry. Range 33 nautical miles. The formation tightens, interval between vessels narrowing to 1.8 miles. They are compressing the blocking line, reducing gaps. The George Washington maintains course and speed. No evasive maneuver. No radio hail transmitted. The rules of engagement are precise on this point. Freedom of navigation allows unobstructed passage through international waters. Course alteration signals acknowledgement of obstruction, implying legitimacy to the challenge. Doctrine does not yield. From the destroyer position forward the carrier, USS Ramage transmits updated tactical picture to the network. Her SBY-1D radar system tracks the Venezuelan formation with precision, calculating intercept angles, closure rates, and collision risk parameters down to the meter. The data flows seamlessly across the strike group's tactical data link, each vessel maintaining identical situational awareness. At 7:31 a.m., range closes to 28 nautical miles. The Venezuelan patrol vessels adjust formation again, expanding back to 2-mile intervals but shifting orientation. They pivot from line abreast to a shallow crescent. The frigate at center, patrol craft angling outward. The geometry creates a net spanning nearly 10 miles of ocean. Inside the George Washington's Air Operations Department, the Alert 5 aircraft sit ready on the catapults. 2 F-divided by -18E Super Hornets, fully fueled, armed with FLIR targeting pods. The pilots have been briefed. Launch authorization rests with the strike group commander, 1 radio call away. The Venezuelan frigate's fire control radar continues active emissions. The EN/LR 67 radar warning receiver aboard the carrier identifies a signal. CELX RAN 11 LX surface search radar coupled with Celnia or INRTN 10X fire control system. The technical specifications are well documented. Target tracking radar for Odomat anti-ship missiles, effective range 18 nautical miles. But tracking is not lock. Emissions are not engagement. Range 24 nautical miles. The distance narrows with mathematical certainty. The Venezuelan formation maintains course. Speed unchanged. No communication attempt. No warning hail. No deviation. Silence as tactical statement. At 7:39 a.m., the captain of the George Washington convenes senior watch officers on the flag bridge. The assessment requires 30 seconds. 5 vessels in blocking formation, 20 nautical miles in closing, fire control radar active but no weapon status change. 0 communication. International waters confirmed by GPS navigation plot. The rules of engagement remain clear. No hostile act observed, no authority to employ force, but equally no requirement to alter course. The order is brief. Prepare aviation option. Below deck. The flight deck crew moves with practice precision. No general quarters alarm. No rush scramble. This is not emergency launch protocol. This is calculated. Escalation in presence. A signal that crosses language barriers without requiring radio frequencies. The first F divided by a -18E rolls toward catapult 2. The jet blast deflector rises behind the aircraft. Hold back bar tension verified. Final weight check completed. The shooter signals launch readiness to the air boss in pre-fly. At 7:44 a.m., the Venezuelan patrol vessel on the eastern end of the formation breaks line. She accelerates to 31 knots, angling sharply inward. Range to carrier, 18 nautical miles. Her course adjustment creates new intercept geometry, a crossing angle that will bring her within 3 miles of the George Washington's bow if neither vessel alters course. The tactical action officer marks the maneuver on the display. This is deliberate provocation, testing reaction, probing for response threshold. When naval forces move to physically block a U.S. carrier in international waters, the response must be measured in awareness, not weapons. Every radar emission, every course adjustment, every second of silence is documented. At 7:47 a.m., catapult 2 fires. The F divided by a -18E launches into morning sky. Acceleration pressing the pilot into the seat as the aircraft transitions from static to 165 knots in 2.1 seconds. The Super Hornet climbs immediately, turning south toward the Venezuelan formation. Altitude, 2,500 feet. Speed, 380 knots. The FLIR targeting pod activates. infrared sensor capturing thermal signatures of every vessel below. The second aircraft launches 45 seconds later. Both fighters establish combat air patrol orbit 12 miles ahead of the carrier, positioned between the strike group and the approaching Venezuelan formation. Range, 16 nautical miles. From the cockpit of the lead Super Hornet, the Venezuelan ships become visible even without optics. The frigate's distinctive silhouette stands clear against blue water, bow wave white against her dark hull. The patrol vessel spread across the horizon, smaller but moving with equal determination. The pilot switches frequency to guard channel, the international emergency frequency monitored by all vessels. The transmission is calm, procedural. Venezuelan Navy vessels. This is United States Navy aircraft on station. You are approaching a U.S. Navy carrier strike group transiting international waters. Maintain safe distance and comply with international maritime law. No response. The Venezuelan formation maintains course. Range, 14 nautical miles. The patrol vessel that broke formation earlier continues aggressive track, now calculated to pass within 2,800 yards of the carrier's bow. In naval terms, this is proximity that demands reaction. At 7:53 a.m., the George Washington's and /SLQ-32 electronic warfare system detects new emissions. The Venezuelan frigate has activated targeting radar in continuous tracking mode. The parameters shift from search to lock, radar beam dwelling on specific coordinates. But the lock is not on the carrier. The fire control radar is tracking the 2F divided by a -18S overhead. The implication is transparent. Surface vessels cannot physically block a carrier that displaces more than all 5 Venezuelan ships combined. But aircraft overhead demonstrate capability to observe, record, and respond. Targeting them creates ambiguity, blurs the line between defensive posture and hostile act. The rules of engagement account for this precisely. Radar lock without weapons release is not hostile act. It is preparation for hostile act, but doctrine requires actual threat before force authorization. The difference matters legally, operationally, and diplomatically. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch team monitors every emission, every frequency, every power level change. The data streams directly to classified networks, recorded with timestamp and geolocation precision. This encounter will be analyzed by intelligence specialists, operational planners, and legal advisors within hours. Range, 12 nautical miles. At 7:58 a.m., the aggressive patrol vessel reaches closest point of approach. Distance, 2,400 yards off the carrier's bow. She cuts across the George Washington's course at 90-degree angle, wake churning white as she crosses a projected track. Her 76mm gun mount remains trained forward, unmanned, no fire control director active. The carrier maintains course and speed. The massive hull cleaves through disturbed water left by the patrol boat, wake dissipating against the carrier's bow. No course correction, no speed reduction. 18 knots, steady as chronometer. The patrol vessel completes her crossing, turning sharply to parallel the carrier's course from starboard side. Range stabilizes at 3,200 yards. She matches speed now, maintaining position alongside like escort rather than antagonist. The remaining Venezuelan vessels continue approach. The frigate leads, flanked by patrol craft in modified crescent formation. Range, 9 nautical miles. Overhead, the F divided by a -18S maintain patrol orbit. The FLIR pods record continuous video, infrared and electro-optical, capturing every vessel movement, every radar mission, every communication attempt. The footage includes precise GPS coordinates, timestamp synchronized to UTC, altitude and aspect angle data embedded in every frame. The power of a carrier strike group is not measured by what it fires, but by what it observes. When documentation replaces demonstration, the message becomes permanent. At 8:04 a.m., the Venezuelan formation reaches 6 nautical miles from the carrier. At this range, visual identification requires no optics. The frigate's superstructure stands distinct, Italian-built Lupo-class design, modernized with radar arrays and communication masts. The patrol vessels appear smaller, faster, but equally committed to maintaining formation geometry. The frigate reduces speed. 22 knots, then 18, matching the carrier's advance. She settles into position 4,000 yards ahead of the George Washington's bow, directly on course. The patrol vessels bracket her, creating 3 vessel lines spanning 5 miles of ocean. This is the blocking position. No longer approaching, now established. The Venezuelan Navy occupies water, through which the carrier must transit to maintain course. The challenge is complete. From the flag bridge, the strike group commander evaluates geometry with clinical precision. 3 vessels ahead, 1 alongside, 1 trailing behind carrier. 5 total, none within. Weapons engagement range of carrier air wing. None positioned to physically prevent carrier transit. The largest Venezuelan vessel displaces 2,500 tons. The George Washington displaces 40 times at mass, momentum alone sufficient to maintain course through any surface obstruction. But doctrine does not rely on mass. It relies on law, and law is clear. The carrier operates in international waters. Transit rights protected under freedom of navigation principles. Vessels attempting to obstruct those rights have no legal standing. The appropriate response is neither evasion nor force. It is continuation. At 8:09 a.m., the George Washington closes to 3,600 yards behind the Venezuelan frigate. The separation narrows with each passing minute. At current speeds, overtake will occur within 17 minutes. Inside the frigate, decisions compress. The vessel can maintain course and be overtaken by carrier, whose bow wake alone will destabilize smaller ship. She can accelerate, extending the blocking attempt but burning fuel at unsustainable rate. Or she can yield. At 8:12 a.m., the frigate's course shifts. 2 degrees to starboard, subtle but measurable. Her speed increases incrementally. 20 knots now. The patrol vessels adjust in formation, maintaining bracket geometry, but sliding clear of direct collision bearing. The George Washington holds steady. Course 115 degrees true. Speed 18 knots. The distance continues narrowing. 3,200 yards. 3,000 yards. The Venezuelan vessels continue drifting right. Course deviation increasing. 3 degrees now. 5 degrees. The blocking line fractures. Gaps opening between vessels as they separate to clear the carrier's path. At 8:17 a.m., the frigate crosses 3,000 yards ahead of the carrier and continues turning to starboard. 15-degree course change now, the movement deliberate rather than reactive. She is not fleeing. She is repositioning, shifting from obstruction to observation. The patrol vessels follow suit, each turning to parallel courses that maintain visual contact with the carrier's strike group without occupying blocking geometry. They settle into formation off the starboard quarter, range stabilizing at 4 to 5 nautical miles. Close enough to observe, far enough to avoid provocation. The F divided by a -18s overhead continue patrol. At 8:23 a.m., the lead aircraft receives instruction to expand orbit, moving south toward the Venezuelan coastal shelf. The targeting pod captures thermal imagery of 3 additional patrol vessels staging near Puerto Cabello, stationary against pier thermal signatures. The intelligence assessment updates immediately. The 5-vessel formation was first wave, not total available force. But first wave has yielded. At 8:31 a.m., the Venezuelan frigate reduces speed further. 16 knots now, falling behind the carrier's advance. The distance opens steadily. 5,000 yards. 6,000. The patrol vessels maintain loose formation, shadowing rather than intercepting. The George Washington continues southeast, course unchanged, mission uninterrupted. Behind the carrier, the Vela Gulf and accompanying destroyers maintain formation positions, their radar systems tracking the Venezuelan vessels as contact of interest, but no longer immediate concern. At 8:40 a.m., the Super Hornets receive recovery instruction. Fuel state remains comfortable, but the tactical picture no longer requires overhead presence. The aircraft break patrol orbit, turning north toward the carrier. The landing sequence begins with precision choreography refined through thousands of repetitions. Inside the Combat Information Center, watch officers review the recorded timeline. First detection at 7:11 a.m. Initial intercept geometry established. Closest approach at 7:58 a.m. Aggressive crossing maneuver by patrol vessel. Blocking formation at 8:04 a.m. Venezuelan vessels directly on carrier's course. Yield at 8:12 a.m. Gradual course deviation opening transit path. Total encounter duration 91 minutes from detection to resolution. 0 shots fired. 0 radio exchanges beyond initial procedural hail. 0 course deviation by U.S. vessels. The carrier strike group maintained freedom of navigation through presence, awareness, and disciplined restraint. The Venezuelan vessels continue shadowing at distance. Their radar systems remain active. Emissions tracked continuously by the strike group's electronic warfare systems. But the emissions are search mode now, not targeting mode. Observation, not engagement preparation. At 8:52 a.m., the first F divided by -18 traps aboard the carrier, tailhook grabbing the 3-wire with control violence. The aircraft rolls clear of the landing area. The second jet follows 90 seconds later. Both aircraft taxi toward the bow, where flight deck crew begins immediate turnaround maintenance. The tactical data from the mission downloads to intelligence systems within minutes. Video footage, radar tracks, electronic intercepts, communication logs. The information flows to Fifth Fleet Headquarters, to United States Southern Command, to the Pentagon's watch floor. By 9:30 a.m., analysts in 3 time zones will review what transpired in these Caribbean waters. The George Washington continues passage. By 11 a.m., the Venezuelan vessels have fallen 15 miles behind, their presence marked on radar displays but no longer tactically relevant. By early afternoon, they reverse course entirely, returning to coastal patrol areas. The encounter ends not with confrontation, but with distance, not with escalation, but with documentation, not with demonstration of firepower, but with demonstration of legal standing backed by overwhelming capability held in reserve. Inside the carrier, watch cycles turn. New contact appear on radar screens. Routine merchant traffic resumes dominance of the surface picture. The strike group continues southeast, mission unchanged, schedule maintained. What the Venezuelan Navy attempted to block, they ultimately observed. What they positioned to challenge, they documented encountering. The carrier strike group transited international waters without deviation, without delay, without compromise. This is how freedom of navigation operates when backed by doctrine, capability, and the discipline to employ neither prematurely. The power lies not in the reaction, but in the certainty that reaction remains available at every moment, measured in tons of displacement, megawatts of radar, and aircraft that can be overhead in minutes. The 5 Venezuelan warships moved to block passage. What happened next was inevitable from the moment they positioned themselves in opposition to legal transit. They observed the carrier strike group exercise the rights guaranteed under international law, and they yielded because the alternative was never truly available. The Caribbean Sea returns to its routine calm. The George Washington disappears over the horizon, bound for operational areas where presence matters more than engagement. Behind her, the encounter exists now as data, as intelligence product, as case study and restraint applied with precision. No warship blocked, No carrier deterred. Just another morning in international waters, where laws are written in treaties but enforced with the quiet professionalism of crews who understand that the greatest display of power is often the decision not to display it at all.